Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths Custom Faction Design with me, BorderWise, my custom factions that I'm making and which may or may not turn into a campaign eventually. I'm in no rush, as you might have already guessed, and nor do I intend to be. Now, I've already shown off two of the factions I'm planning and it's very piecemeal at the moment. I'm just designing what I find fun at the time and just kind of... Well, basically, whenever I get an idea, I act on it, and then I see if it's good, and then I keep it. I have made a lot of failures in this, and so the previous two factions, and we'll go into the folder, they don't have real names yet. The first one is the one in which the rules are no weapons which are not high explosive, apart from simple weapons, no guided missiles, and no energy weapons, and the only structural materials they're allowed to use is heavy armor and wood. Then you have the boss faction, in which the only real restriction is that they're not allowed high explosive of any kind. And now we've got a third faction, which I've dreamt up. So I think I've got 5 in the back of my head, and this is number 3, which, as you can guess from the name, their whole shtick is being lightweight and being fast. So think of them like the white flares, not white flares, sorry, the lightning hoods in the NATO campaign, except they're even more fragile. And they've got even more focus on just killing things fast. So probably they're going to be very annoying to fight because they're going to be very fast, which is a very meta defensive strategy in From the Depths, and they're going to have a lot of overwhelming firepower. So they've got no weapons restrictions. I was thinking about making it so they wouldn't be able to use missiles and crams, but that's no fun because I like both those things, and crams and missiles are pretty dangerous in their own way, and considering they're going to be made out of cardboard, they're going to need all the help they can get, because in the structural tab, the only true structures they're allowed to use, the only true structural material they're allowed to use, as in something that can get an armor second bonus, is light alloy. That's the only thing they're allowed to use, which is a problem because it means there's an awful lot of options that they can't use. They can't use lead for stability, they can't use wood for cost, they can't use wood or stone for cost, they can't use metal, which is like the go-to armor block. So they're going to be quite expensive and also not very durable for their cost, especially seeing as they won't be able to use heavy armor. However, they will be able to use applique panels because, I don't know, applique panels just fit in with their whole lightweight thing, and they are very light. So they're going to be true glass cannons, and they're going to have a lot of hovercraft and stuff like that. A lot of hovercraft, a lot of airships, that kind of thing. Lots of APS, lots of missiles, energy weapons as well. I keep forgetting to design energy weapons for these factions, but that's because, honestly, like, you might hate me for saying this, but lasers are a bit boring. One effective laser design looks pretty much the same as any other, barring crazy things like sniping lasers as opposed to pulse lasers and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so here's our first setup, and this is something I made quite some time ago, and just freshened up to be caught up with my ideas for this faction. It's a turret layout for what is probably going to be a very lightly, quite a reasonably big, but very lightly armored hovercraft. And we'll start with these turrets right here, which are deck guns, which is not a good idea. And my usual trick of hitting shift 4 times doesn't work with this, because applique cannons don't count as structural blocks, so instead, I might just... Oh yeah, they've got... what is this? Yeah, they've got alloy in here, actually. That's more armor than I thought. But these are deck guns. So, let's turn this on here. They are 450mm. They have a bunch of autoloads in there. In Tetris, guaranteed to make people cry. There's a wood block in there. I don't know why there's a... Why is there a wood block? I forgot about that. There's now... there's a neat little gap right here. It really should be like this. Oh well. What the hell? Huh. Interesting. Anyway, so it's got 3 of these 450mm guns. They're firing 1-meter shells, and it's a very simple little thing. It's just big enough to fit in here, and it is a gunpowder casing, inertial fuse, and an HE head. That's it. So does around 2,500 explosive damage. It's got 3 of them per turret, and it's got a whole bunch of turrets. Now, deck guns like this, as in having all the explosive and fragile bits above deck is not a very good idea. Generally, you shouldn't do it. But this is the beauty of custom factions. You can do things which are usually a very bad idea, and you can just say, well, I'm doing it anyway, because of fun reasons. And just for giggles, I made these secondaries just today, actually, and it's quite simple. It is a 3-meter turret with a weapon controller, a bit of alloy here for rudimentary protection, not very well armored. There's a mimic right in the middle here, which is what this circle thing is. This is actually a mimicked steam boiler, which is just giving this nice platform for these 3 elevation turrets, each with a minigun strapped onto it and 2 ERA blocks just for looks. So this is what it looks like without the mimic, and that's what it looks like with the mimic. And I just I'm not claiming to have discovered this. Like, I think there's plenty of faction craft and stuff on the workshop now. Haven't checked, but I guarantee you there's a lot of craft which do this, and there's good reason for that because it looks awesome. And also, I really like the black and white paint scheme. A lot of my craft kind of have kind of that black and white color scheme, and I think it's really good. And this kind of turret setup is, I do this as a kind of preview of how the craft will look and behave. And these are little AIA guns, so these 30mm assault cannons are not the best at anti-air because their muzzle velocity isn't great. So, let's see, where is it? Muzzle velocity... Shot velocity is 250 meters per second. That's quite slow for anything that's shooting at aircraft, but when it comes to shooting at things like this, so spawning the Tortuga, they actually do a pretty decent job. So, they're rigged on separate AI, so the big guns go for big targets, and the miniguns go for smaller targets that are coming at them. So, Tortuga's gonna have a horrible time because HE spam. And these guns also have a pretty decent rate of fire. So if we look here, they fire about 10 shots per minute, which is pretty decent. It's not amazing, but for such a small package, it is pretty good. And I just love the river of bullets that these miniguns spray out like this. And against craft which are dead ahead... Yeah, look at this. This looks so fun. Come on, fire again. There we go. Yeah, so these things are quite decently powerful. Come on, let's see the main guns fire again. Like that. So pretty fast shells. And HE spam for the win. It's pretty good. I love making little miniguns like this. I love making anti-aircraft guns, even though I suspect I'm not very good at it. Because they do have to fire a lot of shots in order to kill anything. Yeah, little Super Tweeties are not having a good day. I think a lot of them are pretty badly damaged already. And I don't... Just clipping bits off them. On a fast-moving craft, this shouldn't be a huge issue for these guns missing so much. Because my plan is to have the eventual hovercraft that these go on be faster than most planes, so yeah. I was going to say that I'm gonna hold off making any full vehicles until the new physics engine, well, until the new physics update happens, but I can set that option anytime in the options menu, so that's not really a good excuse for me. But yeah, I just feel like holding off on committing to building any craft as of right now. God, look at that river of bullets. It's so satisfying. It doesn't do a hell of a lot, but it's pretty good. And then the main guns just crush it. Ah, so nice, so nice. Probably definitely gonna need to put missiles on this craft as well, simply because, I'll show you what I mean, actually. So let's do pull all. And this is a thing I made ages ago. Some of you have seen it, some of you haven't. Ships, hovercraft. Yeah, so the Elgaria. This is me making a glass cannon. And this thing actually survived the APS update fairly well. This isn't a faction craft, this is just something I made for giggles. But it's very much a similar design philosophy to this faction I'm showing off right now. It's just being a complete glass cannon, being very fast. Well, reasonably fast. At 40 meters per second is at neck break speed. But yeah, it's made of cardboard completely. It's just made of wood. And it's got big guns. And what I find with this thing is that it's got simple lasers for just rudimentary AA on it, and it tends to outrun most aircraft because it flies in a tight circle, particularly against slower little planes, deep water guard planes, and it actually is decently fast, 60 meters per second. And just the missiles are necessary for, like, popping planes out of the air at long range, which missiles are decently good at. So, let's pull all, and you go over there, my laddo, and we will move on to the next thing. So this, I don't remember if I've shown this off yet, like, because this would fit perfectly for one of the other factions, the EMP kinetic faction, and this is a 60mm railgun. And I had a look at it again earlier, and it's not perfectly optimized, simply because the shell is, let's go here. So the shell is about 240mm long. In a 1 meter shell rack, that's quite a lot of wasted space, so that isn't ideal. I could make it longer, but I want to keep the rate of fire, and as you might have noticed, this is a pure railgun, and it's pure kinetic, so hollow point. And so, usual story is when you want pure kinetics, railguns are the way to go, and they are decently scary once you do that. Very expensive, but I reckon they're kind of worth the cost. They could be a bit cheaper, really. And so, it uses about 770 rail use per shot. It fires very quickly. This is one of the things I absolutely love about railguns now, is that if you want a ridiculously high rate of fire, railguns are the way to go. 300 rounds per minute these days is pretty darn good. And so 770 rail use per second. So the main trick with hollow points is you've got to get your armor piercing up so the thump damage does something useful. And it's weird. This is a dedicated armor busting hollow point gun because this thump armor pierce, and remember, it ignores armor stacking. And so what you gotta do is make sure that your armor piercing is good enough to destroy whatever target you have in mind. So metal, let's go here, has an armor value of 15, and remember the armor equation, basically you need the armor penetration of something to be twice the armor value of whatever you're shooting at. So it needs to be at least 30, this is 36, that's plenty, so this thing actually does disproportionately well against metal. So I'll show you what I mean right now. I'll have a wooden thing, the pilferer. So you got the pilferer right there, and it's definitely clipping blocks off. And it's not melting it as fast as you might expect. It's definitely got a block confetti trail going, but could be better. Not really justifying the pretty impressive cost of this railgun. And that's simply because wood is cheap hit points, and against kinetic rounds you need a lot of blocks and a lot of hit points. Although it is taking it down pretty quickly. It's just this thing it's like an angle grinder, but it's a gun. It just continually shreds something until it dies. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I'm aiming right here, it is eventually going to bore a hole straight through that turret and blow it up. Wait for it. Wait for it. There we go. So, I found that having a battery of these things is really darn scary, but I'll show you how it does against metal. It actually does quite a bit better against metal. So here we have the Cauldron, updated Onyx Watchcraft, and you'll see that it's weirdly enough it's doing better. Like, it looks like it's doing better, or rather it's doing exactly the same, but metal is usually a lot tougher than wood, so it's a bit of a jarring contrast, really. And against anything that's quite compact, that doesn't have components spread out, this kind of weapon is a killer, simply because the thump damage hits multiple blocks, and, well, it does that, it knocks turrets off, it thumps straight through things that normally are hard to thump. So, pretty good. And I just want to show you, because this is always... actually, I should show you the internals of this. Not amazing Tetris, it's pretty straightforward. So it's just line it, and this is the great thing about railguns, is that no gauge increase is needed and no coolers needed. It's just 6-way connectors all the way through. It's got these railgun charges on it. Just charging up the railgun, and it's got just regular autoloaders because it doesn't really need belt feeders. It fires fast enough without them. Lots of inputs, and lots of recoil absorption because railguns have pretty significant recoil. Right, so that's pretty straightforward. And now let us have a battery of these things because I love that. I love that a lot. Control 0. Whoa. And what shall we melt? Hopefully, I do think I have enough RTGs. Oh, by the way, Final Faction is not going to use RTGs like this. This is very lazy and very wasteful because, like, the cost of this fortress is ridiculous, and most of that is just the RTGs. The railgun itself is reasonably cheap as railguns go. Well, I say that it's 18,000 materials. That is a lot, but yeah. What can we shoot at? Let's shoot at a trebuchet because trebuchets are fun to shoot at these days, and they're just firing away. And shields being their usually useless self. And it's just going to bore its way in. Also, I do find that aim point selection, or rather the random block targeting, with guns like this, it's best to have them trained on one spot for a reasonable length of time, because that way they bore a hole straight through things. Yes, they occasionally waste shots looking at the mast, but with this muzzle velocity, they are not very likely to miss. I should just show you how fast these shells move. The shells they move at over 1,500 meters per second, so that's plenty. And it's just, we've trimmed all the barrels off this trebuchet pretty much, well, most of them. And just look at the blocks cascading off. So yeah, when I would like anything with like 5 60mm hollow point railguns like this, it's scary. It's quite scary. And that armor piercing value is pretty darn good. Yep, and there goes one turret. Not quite as fast as just spamming sabot rounds for cooking off turrets like that. But it just disintegrates it. It just melts straight through it. Okay, assuming direct control, let us just bore a hole straight through here. Yep. There we go. That's a dead trebuchet. Well, almost dead. Okay, so hollow point railguns are fantastic. I love them. Do recommend. So here we are, and now we've got a slightly different thing. So here is a bit of a failure of a gun. This is I don't know. I just wanted to make, and you'll notice. Oh, I didn't comment on the turret caps of these things. It's one of their. I guess I'm used to them already. This is a deliberately elongated, kind of sleek look, and this is for pretty much aesthetics only, because this is not a very durable turret cap. The top armor is way too thin. There's actually only metal plates here, or alloy plates rather, which are decorative and have no health to speak of. So these get blown off by, I don't know, flak sneezing nearby them. So not very durable at all, and yeah, it's got some stuff out in front. It's also space inefficient because it means that the length, it needs a large area in which to turn to stop it clipping with anything else. So it's not a pragmatic turret design, but I just think it looks really cool. It looks like someone tried to convert like a stealth bomber into a turret. And that's a running feature of this faction. I guess you could say that's one of the ways I'm balancing it is that they have derpy turret caps. So this is a 500mm APS. It's pure railgun again. Here's the shell, and it's very simple. It is just a heat-flavored high-explosive round. And what I mean by heat-flavored is it's the shape charge and it's the HE warhead, but there's no special factor. So full explosive damage, just a smidge of heat. Just so it deals with armored things a little bit better. And I tend to find this works because, honestly, the high explosive does most of the work, and the shape charge just gently reaches through armor and tickles things that otherwise are out of reach of HE. So, it uses about 4,000 rail use every shot. It fires at the reasonable but not great rate of 22 rounds per minute, and does a reasonable enough job. So let us fire at Proctor, because that's fun. Also, Proctors are quite compact, so... Bang, boom. Get that pure railgun. Shield's actually being a bit of a bother. Actually, I tend to find that shape charges and squash heads, they tend to just act like free extra explosive damage and free inertial fuses these days. Because, frankly, they add a bit of HE damage, set the special factor of the HE warheads to 0, and you've got a shell that detonates when it hits armor, and, like, no fuse or anything needed. Like, never mind shields, you can spam enough to get them through them. And it's pretty good. So yeah, not an amazing gun, it's just, I don't know. This is just me mucking around with big guns and this kind of turret gap. This one's a little bit better protected, because it's got this, it's up to 2 layers thick of alloy here. Which is not great. Alloy is, if you just look at it, it looks, it's similar stats to metal, but, that extra 2 armor, particularly when stacking, makes a difference. So, 2 layers, 2 metal beams stacked has about 4,200 health and 30 armor, and 2 alloy beams is about 3,000 health and 26 armor, which is quite a bit less. So, alloy is reasonably tough, but generally speaking, if you want tough, metal is better. So that's going to be the main weakness of this faction, is just they're not going to be able to take hits well. Like, at all, really. They are going to be impossible to sink, though. And it's not going to take much to get them airborne, because you'll notice this whole turret cap, well, this whole turret, is armored in alloy. So it's going to be quite light. Okay, so that's enough of that guy. Let's move on to the next guy. Whoops, wrong one. This one. So what do we got here? Alright, so this is exactly the same turret, but it's got a cram in there. Not an amazing cram. It's about just over 1800 millimeters. It is pure high explosive. I forgot to look at the insides of that turret. Oh well, it's not amazing. Let's just do that quick. Sorry, I am not doing this in the right order. So we go here, and for not amazing Tetris. It's just very simple. It's just this kind of 3-stack in the front and back, and then just an extra autoloader and clips on the side, and rail charges stuck wherever, and long noodle barrel, lots of recoil, and a bit of surge protectors in the back, because I had the room for it. Right. So that's basically that, and this cram turret is basically exactly the same design, except it's got cramped Tetris in here. Now, you might be wondering what on earth I did here, and you'd be right, because this is very bog-standard Tetris for a 3x3 cram. It's 5x5 turret, including the armor, and it's just this crosshatch pattern. But the one thing I did do is I've separated out the HE pellets with ammunition, because cram ammunition is not explosive and doesn't chain react when it's destroyed, but the explosive pellets do. When these things go off, it is... they do explode, and they do just enough explosive damage to destroy other explosive pellets and, like, cook off the whole turret. So, you don't want that, and I will demonstrate that, and hopefully I'll be right. Let's do this, and... where's my death ray? Let's, and I think it's there. Yep, and... see, it did not work. It did not do that thing. Shouldn't have done that. But if you do something like this... so... what? Zap. So, go for that one. Ah. It did... what? Well, this game just made a fool of me. I swear it does work like that. Oh well. Or at least it used to. It might have gotten changed recently, which means that my adorable little setup here is completely unnecessary. Oh well, it looks cool. So, quick firing demo. It's an HE cram. There's nothing amazing about it, really. Let's go to something that doesn't have a freaking... Let's shoot at the Stralsund. I want to see bits fly. So that first shot is very strong, but it's gonna miss. Watch this. It'll miss. And usual story with HE crams, I have... Ooh, timed fuse. Yeah, that did quite nicely, actually. So... I'm less fond of cram timed fuses as I used to be, simply because there's times in which they detonate too early or too late to be helpful, but generally speaking, with a pure high explosive cram, they're still pretty good and I highly recommend them. And this is a case of quality of cram versus quantity of cram, and you can see for yourself which one is working better. One more shot for Daddy. There we go. So you're gonna do something important. That looked like it hurt. Yep, that was a pretty good shot. Okay, so that gun is... This one's fairly boring, let's face it. So, moving right along to this one. Now, this is also a bit of a failure, because this is me trying to jam 3 guns, 303mm squash head and shape charge rounds into one gun. This is not a railgun, which is part of its problem. And so we go here, 1, 2, 3, not amazing. And similar story, it is just, they are heat and hash flavored rather than proper heat and hash. It's just the special factor of the HE warhead is set to 0, because I want big explosions, darn it. And pretty lousy rate of fire. It's generally a lot better to have one APS system, just with better stats, rather than 3 crappy ones in one turret, because if nothing else, barrels are expensive, and you just end up with a bigger than necessary turret in order to facilitate all 3 guns in here. So, yeah, the Tetris is less than ideal. So you'll see here, this is a very basic 3x3, very tightly packed in, and just the autoloaders are offset so they don't touch each other, and that's basically it. And just surge protectors here and there, just filling in the gaps. And the fact that there are gaps like this is a sign that the Tetris is not spectacular. Thankfully, not much recoil absorption needed, because this thing fires so slowly. So, just fire, and let's have a target. Let's go to the Twin Guard and... Let's shoot at a marksman. Why not? Does this have a LAM system? I don't remember. So yeah, 7 shots a minute, not great. Thanks, I can't see now. Bang. But yeah, combination of heat and hash is still a pretty good combo, simply because hash tends to deal with stuff that heat is bad against, and vice versa. I could go into more detailed explanation, but I don't feel like it, so... Bang. That is a lot of missiles. Whoa. Whoopsie daisy, we've knocked your turret off. How sad for you. Alrighty then. So, that's enough of that. Go over here. Oh, now this is a fun one. Okay, so this is quite a big turret. This thing fires 8-meter long, high explosive flak frag shells at 444 millimeters. And I just stumbled on that number because it's a nice handy number for jamming a shell that is got exactly this number of components in there. You can see it's very close to 8 meters, but not quite. And stacked HE, quite a few. And this is me being lazy, because if you want squash or hash flavored high explosive, or heat flavored high explosive for that matter, there's 2 ways to do it. You can have all your warheads and the thing, and then manually set each of them to have a special factor of 1, Or you can just stick a non-HE warhead in between the head and the rest of the warheads, which in this case is a frag warhead. Frag isn't as strong as it used to be, but it still can kind of shred things if you set it up properly. And 135-degree angle is the best compromise between damage per fragment and them all going in roughly the right direction. And the two flak warheads are here just because HE, the stacking bonus gets... Well, the stacking penalty gets, like, to the point of diminishing returns past a certain point, which is about... It's actually around 4 or 5. I've got 6 warheads in there, and that's not great. But, yeah, 2 flak warheads are just there for a little bit of extra radius and a little bit of extra damage that I otherwise wouldn't get. And this is not a railgun, so 500 meters per second, and let's shoot at something... Let's shoot at a marksman again. I don't shoot at it very often. And that was a horrible miss. Lots of HE damage. Yeah, it makes confetti when it hits things. I need to make a version of this for my first faction, the one that uses lots of high explosive, because this shell is actually really fun. I would need to modify it a little bit, because no frag allowed with that faction. Boom. Woohoo! Fire again. All the smoke, I can't see what's happening. You missed! You fool! How could you miss? Oh, oh, it just bounced it off. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that squash head is doing work. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And just a quick look at the innards once again. Armored completely in alloy. It's this is my... What did I call this thing again? It's like a Lazy Boy APS. So it's just, it starts on the bottom. There's a floor of coolers with the odd... the snake goes like... Nyom, 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 nyom. And then it's a good way of getting a lot of coolers in there, because generally you can jam more stuff in if you go wider rather than taller. Whole bunch of gauge increases, whole bunch of just a whole bunch of autoloaders, and then I replace as many of them with clips as I possibly can. Then up here, and a few recoil absorbers taking advantage of the length of the turret, which I've just realized I've left a gap in here. That's not very smart. Could stick something in there. And then long noodle gun. Okay, so that's that one. Pretty straightforward. And whoop, and here we have something interesting. This is one of my favorites. It doesn't have an amazing rate of fire. This is a 100mm. Again, it is a hash-flavored high explosive with added frag, and just, I love this shell type. I just really love it. So 1 meter shells exactly, propelled entirely through rail power, muzzle velocity about 1000, it uses 1000 rail power, so let me show you the stats with that. So rubbish kinetic damage, but roughly 1600 explosive damage, which is pretty good, especially with the rate of fire. Rate of fire isn't incredible, but it's almost 80, so let me show you what that does to... let's go here. Let's go with a Banshee. So bang, bang, bang. So the Banshee isn't exactly really well armored ship. It is stealthy though, which is annoying. But yeah. Pretty good against things that aren't particularly well armored. So imagine this is... I don't know what kind of weapon this would be. This would be on like a... Jeez, I don't know. Destroyer level thing? I don't know. I apologize for my ignorance of ship classes, but in my defense, ship classes are one of the least consistent... it's one of the least internally consistent topics on the planet, because... ship classes are just very vague, and the definitions vary a lot, particularly through history, so I wouldn't work up too much of a sweat about it if I were you. Let's actually get this accurate, please. nice amounts of work there. Okay, so that's that one. Pull all, and now we've got something that I originally just made for giggles. This is a very flat, very squat cram cannon. So this is an improvement in pretty much every single way to the cram cannon we had over there. And again, it's pure HE, but here's the thing. It's only got one layer of loaders and pellets. But it's wide, that's the thing. So, if you want to make your cram cannon bigger and better, my suggestion to you is make it wider and shorter rather than taller and narrower. Like, I like tall, narrow turrets, but they are just not as good as something that has built something like this. Because this is a pretty decent cannon. It's 2000 millimeters, it's got lots of ammo, so more than it needs actually. It's just if ammo stores on the craft get destroyed, this thing will be able to continue to fire for quite some time. Pretty bog standard Tetris. So it's got that cross hatch thing, so autoloaders coming off in crosses, linking up, and like lots of pellets shared. And bang, and that, and let's shoot at a Raya, because Rayas are fun to shoot at. Hi Raya, how are you doing? So when this thing is fully crammed, and it fires once every 16 seconds, which is pretty good for this kind of weapon, there's about 17,000 explosive damage, which is not to be sneezed at. I'm trying to remember if the Raya's lambs are good enough for this. Nope, they're not. What did we do? We did slightly more than scratch the paint. Fire again, please. The Raya's a fun craft to shoot at. It's just so big. Once again, inertial fuse, time fuse. Yep, nice big explosion. You know what? That's not enough cram. Let's try that again with more cram. So yeah, this kind of gun, in just 18,000, remember the Railgun cost? This thing is less than 6. It's so cheap. This is actually, for the kind of power that this cannon has, 6,000? That is astonishingly cheap. It is, like, cram is almost too cheap these days. But yeah, I'm just gonna have this thing fire because, once again, the sleek turret design, not great, but ye gods, like, I love the look of it. Like, I've put, like, there's at least, I don't know, there's several stylistic turrets that I'm going for right now, and this faction definitely is going to be rolling with these kind of long, sleek turrets, just because it's a very distinctive look, and I just think it matches their aesthetic and their design. And I should probably make some pen depth version of these. Fire again. Let's blow things up, please. Come on. No, please don't aim for the superstructure. Just so satisfying to see a big cram shell come in and just peel an armored craft like an onion. The Raya has actually pretty impressive missile spam. What did that do? Not a hell of a lot. The Raya is mostly made up of empty air, which makes her quite resistant just to high explosives. Please don't overshoot. Hello, did we blind you? You know what? Assuming manual control, I want you to blow up something. I want you to blow up something important. That's gonna miss horribly. Or not. Whoa! That actually managed to destroy some gauge increases. Go on, fire once more. I want to see if you can blow up 2 turrets at once. Oh no, stop turning, Raya. That's very rude. I'm on. One more. Aim right here. Aim right here. Come on. Come on. Come on. The people, they want to see fireworks. Yes! Beautiful. I love it when that happens. It's so satisfying. Alright, you get one more shot there, laddie. Let's just quickly show you what's it like inside. Very simple. The fuse box and the laser targeter are down here. There's the turret cap is almost entirely just alloy. Whee! And of course, I need to get my butt moving and probably actually make a craft in the style of this faction, because then you can show off the true design aesthetic, which is the thing is very fast, evasive, and stuff like that. But yeah, that'll have to happen later. Yeah, it's so much fun to watch this kind of thing. Let's turn you off for a second. So yeah, that's basically it. That is faction number 3. The beginnings of. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. How's my spiel go again? I was distracted by the pretty turrets. Thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe. Support me on Patreon if you like. It really helps. Thank you to all my current Patreon supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths for more fun, more custom factions, and all that jazz. I like jazz. Like, I should buy more jazz music. What a weird note to end on. Farewell!